That's not a comic book. Now that's a comic book.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Comic Reviews. I hope all is well. I'm starting at 8, which is just about the right time, so that's good. And it looks like no technical glitches or mistakes right off the top of the show. How amazing. If only it could be this way every week. But then the world would obviously end, because we can't have that. Anyway, I hope everything's going well for everyone. I already said that. Hi, Robert Emmett. Thanks for coming live. Appreciate it. I don't really know. I don't have a ton of announcement stuff. I guess I got a couple things I can talk about before we get into the show itself, though. I was at the shop today, and I picked up Green Lantern Earth 1, so expect an episode of Trade Talk on this next week. Excited to talk about it. Also, this Saturday, for those that have it, we're doing Comic Book Club Volume 2, which is a live show, where we'll be discussing Captain America, Man Out of Time. So the cool thing about this live show is it is a book club for comic books. So if you buy the book or have a legal copy of it, you can come join the episode and be in it and have a good time. So yeah, I'm excited about that. I hope to see some of y'all there. Otherwise, maybe you'll just watch it after the fact and enjoy, but you can join live. We only require that you have, microphone and headphones. Webcam is preferred. And then we'll be doing it March 17th at 2 p.m. Saturday, Eastern Standard Time. So hope to see you there. Hope it'll be a good time. I'm excited. Anyway, that's all I got for announcements and stuff. So we'll just go ahead and talk about what we'll be talking about, which is Trinity number 19, Darth Vader number 13, Mr. Miracle number 7, and Wonder Woman number 42. Yep, 42. And then for Trade Talk this week, we have Batman, the Doom That Came to Gotham. So, plenty of exciting stuff going on tonight. Good books, bad books, books. Well, just go ahead and get into it. I ain't got all that much to say, announcement-wise. So, let's begin. So we're starting off this week with Trinity, number 19. Written by James Robinson. We actually got 2 books by James Robinson this week, the other one being Wonder Woman. And I don't like either of them. This is actually a pretty bad week, all things considered, as far as books that I regularly read, but I do not enjoy. Yeah, I got this, Wonder Woman, and Darth Vader, and all of those books are just pretty bad right now. Which is unfortunate, It's just, it hurts. What can you do? So, it's not like this is an exceptionally bad issue for this book. This book's just gotten pretty boring and overall disappointing. And that's something to say that a book is boring when, the second page is Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman fighting. But, I don't know. I know this book is ending, and this issue feels weird, because it totally feels like it was set up to be padded out for at least another issue. A lot of stuff happens in this issue, and it just feels like it got condensed down compared to how this book's been functioning. But at the end of last issue, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman looked like they were in their 80s or whatever, and so they explain how they got back to looking normal. It's a spell cast by the Warlord's daughter. And then they find a way to get Superman some of his powers, and they go and fight this invading army for a while. and it turns out it was all distraction to turn the Morrigan's forces away from the city walls long enough for the warlord to come in and you know, save the day. I don't just... That's the big events of the story. That is the bigger thing that's going on. Then there's this reveal on the last 2 pages after, like, just we get a page of Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman going home. That's it. Like, it's five seconds of them getting told that they're going home. And then it cuts back to this narrative device, which is Steve Trevor's been the one that they're all talking to throughout this entire story arc. And Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman reveal that they know they're not actually talking to Steve Trevor. And so they figure out that it's Morgan who's been interrogating them for some reason. And that he's kidnapped the real Steve Trevor. And so the next story arc is going to be called The Search for Steve Trevor. Okay. I guess I'm here for it. I don't know. This book started so strong. Like, what was it? Issue 2 of Trinity was this really heartbreaking love letter Francis Manipal wrote to his father, to father-son relationships and how important they are. And then now it's just like, yeah, bleh. Such a disappointing read. Just, honestly, I'm just disappointed in this book more than anything. James Robinson seems to just get put on stuff that I don't think he has many ideas for. And, like, I talked about how I liked last issue quite a bit just because it gave us Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman riding unicorns. But this is just not interesting. And that's unfortunate. There's like a couple pages of just action battle that doesn't really feel that consequential because we know the heroes survive, obviously. I don't know, it's boring. It's just a boring book. If you're enjoying it, I'm glad somebody's getting something out of it because I certainly am not. Oh well. Let's go ahead and move on and talk about another book that I don't really care for all that much, is Darth Vader, number 13. Oddly enough, this was a very good issue by the standards of this book. This felt a lot more in line with what I really liked, what Kieran Gillen was doing back when he was writing his Darth Vader series. This is a different series because comic books. Yeah, this was a much stronger issue. It just, you know, the joke I've been making as I've been reviewing these is it feels like a fucking video game. It feels like a fucking video game. This issue did not. This issue had actual character pathos to it. This felt like an actual story and not just an excuse to give action scenes. That being said, there are some really cool scenes in here. I love how this opens because there's a time jump in this where we find the Empire has been operating in full force for about 3 years now. And we open on Mustafar with the iconic scene. It's over, Anakin. I have the high ground. But then there's this odd panel that immediately lets you know this isn't what you think it is. And we cut to Darth Vader saying, "You underestimate my power." And then I really like this over here, the sequence that happens as Vader uses the Force to push a lava wave at Obi-Wan, forcing Obi-Wan to try and avoid it, and allowing Vader to gain the upper hand, force choking him and throwing him to the ground. But what I really, really like about this is all the dialogue is kept the same. Like we cut to Obi-Wan on the ground bursting into flames, saying, You were the chosen one. It was said you would destroy the Sith, not join them, bring balance to the Force, not leave it in darkness. I will give Charles Soule credit. Like, I've been really harsh on this book, and I do feel deservingly so. But he does get how important Mustafar is to the character. I know a lot of people that like Darth Vader and really, really dislike the some of the silliness and stupidity in a lot of the prequels stuff with Anakin. And I've heard people complain about Mustafar, about how him jumping like that was really stupid. I think that actually works for me in just the hubris, the pride before the fall kind of thing. And so I like this scene quite a bit, and this is, we've gone back to Mustafar multiple times now in Soule's run. This moment that Darth Vader is clearly just dwelling on and thinking about in his meditations and downtime is really, really interesting. I like the idea that he's been replaying this scenario over and over and over again in his head, trying to think of what he could have done better. So his idea, yes, I could have thrown lava at him, and that would have allowed me the upper hand. I could have done this, I coulda. And that I really like. I do think that's a really strong opening. And I think this is probably the best book this series has had so far. In Soule's Vader run, I think this is his best issue. Because it gets really political and it has a level of intrigue that I really appreciate. So Vader's sent to Mon Calamar in a not diplomatic, in a military sense, but for a special strike mission, because the Mon Calamari are being problematic to the Empire because the Empire is asking for too much from them, as it does, and they're stalling in negotiation styles. So it's tipping the idea that there's someone helping them negotiate like this, and it's a Jedi. So Vader and the Inquisitors show up to root out the cause, and Akbar's there as a security guard, which is kind of cool. And he says there are no enemies of the Empire on Mon Calamar, just as an ambassador? What's the word I want? Diplomatic Imperial ship takes off and explodes. And Vader says, "You are mistaken." And then walks off. So it looks like there's military escalation occurring, and things are going wrong quickly. And turns out Sidious was right. There is a Jedi in hiding on Mon Calamar. The clothing really does give the tip, oh, maybe it's Obi-Wan, but we all know it's not. Anyway, so yeah, it's just, there's a lot more political intrigue. I actually care about the stakes. I care about Mon Calamar. There's just stuff going on here that I like a lot more. It works a lot better, it really does. I also think, to go back to the Mustafar scene, it's interesting that even in this moment, Vader imagines himself in the armor. I think that says something about the character and kind of gets the hopelessness of his situation, that he's kind of resigned to this life of torment. So I really like that. Wow. Philip Kelton says, "Hey Ian, have you seen Clone Wars?" Because there's a conversation in the comments about how Clone Wars fixes and saves the prequels. There's a geeky gentleman on the entire series of Clone Wars. So you can go check that out. That was Alex and I. So yeah, plenty of love for Clone Wars. Everyone doing good in the comments? Everyone happy? Everyone in a good headspace, I hope? Hope so. For those of you watching after the fact, I hope I hope you're in a good headspace, too. I feel like you need to be in a good place to talk about the comic we're talking about now. Let's go on to Mr. Miracle, number 7. Tom King, Tom King, Tom King. I don't know how this series got to this point. It's really, really weird. There's a time jump in this that is just like really surprising, and this this has a real like tonal shift to it compared to the rest of the book. And it's telling that we're on issue 7 of a 12-issue series, and that issue 6 had such a dark and ominous ending compared to issue 7, which just has this really weird tone to it. It's very, very different than what you're used to with this series. And not in a bad way. I don't want to implicate that. It's just... And I think that's intentional. It's meant to be surprising. It's meant to feel weird, I think. So this issue is actually really easy to summarize. Barda's having her baby. She and Scott are in the hospital waiting for the baby to come and for it to be delivered and all that stuff. The female Furies show up at one point because they're really excited for Barda, even though they're in the middle of a war against Barda and Scott. They show up to be supportive because they're the Furies, and Barda has the baby. That's how that's the entire plot of this issue. And it's like, it's good though. It's really, really unsettling and just interesting. It starts out with some of the weirdness that I think this book is kind of known for, as Scott tries to pull up to the valet in the in a car to drop or to, you know, take his wife to the hospital, and it's like, you can't park here, you can drop her. There's a parking lot on Olympic. It said online there's a valet. I'm the valet. Okay, great. Well, can we use you? I don't want her contractions are what, like 4 minutes apart? Yes. There's a parking lot on Olympic. It's not very far, around the corner, make a left. Look, she's about to have the first new god ever born on Earth. No one knows what's going to happen. I have to help her. If you're the valet, can you valet? There's a parking lot around the corner. It's on Olympic. That's... That's like really frustrating, and I don't know if this is a joke or if there's some huge point to this conversation, or if this is meant to feel completely unreal. But that is a really weird scene. So anyway, Bert is admitted and they have the baby, but the big moment in this that gets really, really scary is when the baby's heartbeat stops being apparent to the machines, and they get really, really scared, and they have to go get a nurse, and they're like, everything's gonna be fine, everything's gonna be fine. And everything is fine. It all goes okay, and they just turn her on her side for a bit, and the baby's fine. And I really like this panel of Barda as she wipes away a tear because of how scared she was for a moment. But then, like, the big moment comes when they have the baby and the umbilical cord is wrapped around the neck, and And so he's not able to breathe, and being that it is the child of a superhero, they can't cut through the umbilical cord to release it. So Scott uses this magical knife that Desaad's sister gave to him, and they're able to use that to cut the umbilical cord. Now, the moment I really like is as they are sitting there the doctor's sitting there trying to figure out what to do, how to save the kid, we get the infamous Dark Side Is panel. So Tom King has talked about this idea of Dark Side Is, what that means. And he's kind of personified it as the dark thoughts. The scary, unnerving, and hurtful in the world. So, like, the way he explained it is, have you ever thought of something that you know you shouldn't say to someone, but you said it anyway? That's dark side. And I think that this moment where Scott is freaking out and it looks like the baby might not make it, and we just get the Dark Side Is an illusion of that. It's like, that is Scott thinking about, my child is going to die. And it's that dread, that darkness. And so he's able to quickly take action. I don't think it's a mistake that the knife he uses to save his child's life is glowing gold. I don't feel like that's an accident. I don't know. It's just interesting. Otherwise, it's a really good issue. They named the baby Jacob. Scott keeps like coming up with some new ideas for names, and they're all very, very New God-esque names that are pretty funny. What's one of the ones he suggested? Throne Killer, Thunder Death, Iron Hands, or something like that. So it's just these very, very, New God Kirby-esque names. And then we look like we're getting some allusion to Barta and Scott having sleepless nights because of the baby as this goes on. So I don't know, it's a damn good issue, but it is very, very tonally different because it has the anxiety cranked up to 11, which this book, of course, does. But it gives us a happy moment without immediately dashing and destroying our hopes by the end. So I don't know if I should be more worried or less. I would love for this book to take a turn and for Scott to, start to get to be happy and not suffer from crippling depression and anxiety. But I don't trust you, Tom King. You're mean, and you hurt my feelings, and you keep doing it. Oh. Let's see here. Akuma Ranger says, I just assumed that Darkseid it's like that famous monologue Darkseid gives to Superman in Final Crisis. It's not, though. One moment. For those that are unaware, move Darkseid. Lego Darkseid, you are blocking my access to a really good comic with Darkseid. Whoa. Well, you didn't have to fall over, Lego Darkseid. Lego Darkseid, you are really screwing the pooch right now. Anyway. So I love Final Crisis, and it's, of course, the time Morrison wrote Darkseid, but Darkseid is comes from a Morrison comic, which is JLA Rock of Ages. And I highly recommend this because you really don't need too much context aside from just general 90s knowledge of what the Justice League was at that time. But they go to a timeline where Darkseid has taken over, and yeah, here we go. Darkseid is just the propaganda. That's where Darkseid comes from, and it is this imposing Darkseid is everything. There's this great speech that Glorious Godfrey gives at one point in the book that I really, really love. And I skipped over it because... There we go. I'm going to do my best preacher voice, which I found I'm actually quite good at. The hour has come! Oh, wait, no, hold on, I screwed up. On your knees for the Master! The hour has come! He has come! Who is beyond good and evil? Who is the prophet of anti-life? Who is the rock and the chain and the lightning? All powerful, all unforgiving, all conquering. Who is your new God now and forever? Darkseid is. Darkseid is. So that's where Darkseid comes from, and it is this illusion, this tribute to Morrison. I feel it's too obvious not to be, or I don't know, maybe King and Morrison came up with the same comprehension of Darkseid, but that notion of who is beyond good and evil, who is all powerful, all unforgiving. Darkseid is that prevailing underlying creepy notion. So if you haven't read JLA Rock of Ages, it is definitely worth your time. And so is all of Grant Morrison's Justice League run. It's not like the super deep, trippy stuff, though there is a little bit of that. My hands are yellow. There's a little bit of that, but it's probably the most fun and accessible thing Morrison ever wrote. All right. Woo. All right, let's go ahead and go on, though, to Wonder Woman, number 42. And here's the problem. I just talked about a really, really, really good comic that's like, it's unfairly good. Like, I don't like what James Robinson is doing with Wonder Woman, but I don't want to make it sound like it is complete trash or anything like that, because it's not. It's just a fairly bad comic, or kind of a boring comic, or just depressingly average. But I just got done talking about Mr. Miracle, which is fucking genius, and it's going to be one of those books that like you're going to find on college campuses for years once it's in print. This is the feed the machine kind of comic. This is the rom-com of comic books, where it's the kind of story that you publish just so you can keep publishing other stuff, and it's not good. It's not completely awful, but it's certainly very obviously not good. And that's just unfortunate. So Jason's back, and we get exposition, and he's got some kind of new power and a new suit. And then he and Wonder Woman head to this castle all the way across the world in 12 minutes. While on the way, he explains his encounter with the Deep Six of Apocalypse, and it shows a fight scene with them that doesn't really mean anything, because it's just, and that's how I got involved with Grail and Darkseid. Okay, we fucking, God, I don't care anymore, Jason. I don't care. We've gotten your origin like 7 times. It's exhausting. And then they get to the castle, and Wonder Woman fights Grail for a sec, but It's all just a ruse to get her under the lasso of truth and start asking her what Darkseid's plan is. And apparently he wants an army. And Jason's fighting parademons outside. And this page I have problems with and I'll have to talk about. But yeah, so Jason's... Oh shit. I ripped my book. Good thing it's not a good book. Anyway, so Jason's outside fighting and Grail's able to use her power to overcome the lasso of truth and escape. And I don't even know. Darkseid plans to invade Argus because he needs their resources. Whatever. I guess. It's fine. It's exhausting, but it's fine. So anyway. It's just... Why? This is worth talking about, because this is just poor layout of a 2-page spread for dialogue and exposition. Because we start here, and we go over, across over to this way, again, but the top row is where you need to communicate that the most, and the break in panel from the bottom line being right here on this panel to the bottom line being over here on the other makes your eye go, no, that's not where you go, because yeah, it's a 2-page spread, but look, the panel doesn't line up. It's overlaid, so that's clearly an indicator to your eye to go down and read. And here's the thing. The conversation doesn't get entirely incomprehensible until the point where you get to here reading the page vertically. And that's kind of a good tell of just a poorly written sequence of dialogue. I don't know. I'm just not a fan. I'm just not happy with this, and I want a better writer on it. I'm sure James Robinson is a good writer on other stuff, but I'm reading this, and I'm reading Trinity, and it just doesn't feel like he's putting an effort into it, is what it comes down to. I'm sure he does good things. I've heard people rave about Starman, and I have wanted to check it out, but after this, I'm like, I feel like I'm just helping the guy take home a paycheck. I feel like he is showing up to the job, and, you know, that's not inspiring, especially with Wonder Woman. Even though I have my problems with the Wonder Woman movie, there's all this momentum for the character post the movie, and it just feels like dead stop with this. It feels like a dead stop, like slam on the brakes kind of stop. I feel like I've got whiplash, and that's unfortunate. It's just sad. It's just unfortunate. And so yeah, that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at with this. Not a very good book. Oh well. Anyway, what's the live comment saying? How so will Mr. Miracle be on campuses as like research material for literature or philosophy students? If I was teaching literature, I'd use it as a prime example of tempering tragedy with comedy. Well, I just remember, like, when I went to college, the campus bookstore, obviously it had, like, you know, textbooks and stuff, but it also had novels and graphic novels, and they kept, like, some of the current stuff that's published, but they had Watchmen, and they had Killing Joke, and they had Dark Knight Returns, and they had, like, you know, the famous books. They had, like, The Sandman. And I feel like Mr. Miracle is clearly going to be in that pantheon of things that just are never really out of print. Like, Omega Men's really, really good, but it's... I can still tell Tom King was really growing as a writer at that point. He was working on some things and was kind of just using his characters as puppets for a story that he wanted to tell. It didn't really feel like a proper Kyle Rayner story, if nothing else. And like, the Batman run I love, but at the same time, it's not, like... It's not one of those things... It's so long, and what's genius about it has so much to do with fundamentally understanding Batman from a very specific perspective that I don't think it's the kind of thing that anyone can read out of context just in an isolated thing. Like, you know, we're, what, 50 issues, or 40-something issues in, so, yeah, it's gonna be one of those things. It's a long burn. So that's not going to be the kind of thing that's always kept in print and easily accessible. War of Jokes and Riddles might be, but regardless. Whereas Mr. Miracle, it's a 12-issue limited run. I think Vision has the potential to be the same way. But again, that's more steeped in continuity, whereas Mr. Miracle really isn't. So there's just interesting things. Say, Akuma Ranger says, are you going to check out Rucka's new book about Wonder Woman's daughter in an alternate universe? Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. I'm fine with Rucka. I'm more interested in the Black Label Wonder Woman book. What's that? Who's going to be writing that? I can't remember off the top of my head. Kuma Ranger also says, I'm trying to figure out why does it seem so hard for writers to make stories about gods and power plays seem so boring. I don't know. It's weird, man. There's a lot like that where I'm like, this is just exhausting. Do you think King may peek at this? Vision is a masterwork, and yet Mr. Miracle is even better. Hard to imagine him topping it. You know, you don't have to, not every painting has to be a masterpiece. Tom King's just a really talented writer, and one of the best things about being a writer is, as an art form, is like, ballet you can only be good at for so long. Eventually, like, you age out of ballet. You age out of figure skating. So those are like things that you can only do for so long. Art, it gets harder to paint and to keep your hands steady and do the kind of work you want to do as you get older, which is why a lot of older artists kind of drop off the monthly pace for comics. Writers, as long as they keep their faculties, they can go until, like, the day they die. Like, Len Wein's kind of an interesting example of that, because his Swamp Thing, the reprint of the, or not reprint, the printing of the Swamp Thing story he was going to do with Kelly Jones, that was written, like, within the year before he died, and it was going to be, it had, like, one more draft to go to him for a final pass on dialogue, like, a month before he died. So, as far as the writer goes, if this is still working and this is still ticking, you can always write. Not necessarily going to always be the best thing, and I'm sure eventually Tom King will write something where I have to go, no, that's just, that wasn't good. And that's, you know, it's just part of the process. So, no, I'm not worried about Tom King peaking. I'm sure he'll do other great things and continue to be a really good writer. Will he write something better than Mr. Miracle or Vision again? I don't know. He hasn't let me down yet. Maybe these are just the lead-ups. Let's see here. I'm going to be seeing Frank Miller this weekend at a comic book convention. Cool, Philip. Enjoy that. Have a good time. I'm not sure what to ask him. Ask him what happened to him, because from what I understand, he did not lose this or this, but he forgot how to write. Okay, guys. I think that'll do it for the live interaction part. I'm going to move on to Trade Talk. Hope you don't mind. Man, oh man, oh man. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Trade Talk. I'm Sid Part 2, and today we'll be talking about Batman, the Doom that came to Gotham. I got this a couple months ago for Christmas as a gift from my brother-in-law. He and I are both big comic nerds. We're also big H.P. Lovecraft fans. Or not big, but we also both enjoy a good old H.P. Lovecraft story. And as you can see, I'm always the consummate professional. Oh, shit. Things went wrong. This was not a success. This was not a success at all. But I am a bit of an H.P. Lovecraft nerd. I got into it a couple years ago, and I like the world, and I like the storytelling. So I made myself a custom... Oh, he's too tall. What about back here? What about if I do this? What about if I do this? Oh my, this is going so professionally. I'm doing so well. I just wanted to show you my toys. Aw, come on, Cthulhu. He's actually pretty good at standing once you get him to stand. I did a whole video on this guy. If you want to go searching for that, just search Sid Part 2 Cthulhu. I'm sure it'll come up. Okay. Hopefully Cthulhu, my co-host, will be fine. Anyway. So yeah, I've got an affinity. I'm not going to call myself like a super fan of H.P. Lovecraft, but I've read a handful of stories. I have the complete collection. I need to go through and read that at some point. But I do like H.P. Lovecraft, and that's kind of the big selling point for this. This is an Elseworlds Batman story set in the early 19th century around a Lovecraftian doom. A Lovecraftian apocalypse. So it starts with Batman, or with Bruce in an expedition to the North Pole on a rescue mission, trying to come across, or trying to find the remnants of a research ship led by Professor Cobblepot, which has crashed in the Arctic. As they look for Cobblepot, they find a madman chipping away at a monster in an ice wall, protected by diseased penguins of some sort. The penguins have some kind of really weird... Where's the imagery of them? Because they looked super fucked. I thought there was a better panel of the things. Damn it. Don't you hate that? Anyway, so, they're able to take the survivor who's chipping at the ice to unleash the beast onto the ship, and they blow up the cave, and they decide to head back home to Gotham City after 20 long years at sea, exploring the world. Once they get back to Gotham, though, things start to go wrong fast. They return to Wayne Manor, and they find a dead body inside the house waiting for them, and Etrigan shows up and gives Bruce three, what is it he says? Like three pieces of advice. Damn it. My name is Blood. You do not want to know me or what I am. Suffice to say, what is invisible may not to most is invisible to me. I know much, but I am allowed only to tell you these 4 things. So, Etrigan tells him 4 things to be aware of, and so Bruce begins to do some detective work into what's going on with the city. And we set up a lot in here. We set up an Oliver Queen. We set up Harvey Dent. We introduce a lot of villains. Victor Fries being the man at the North Pole. And just a whole lot gets set up as Batman begins to uncover this mystery of Gotham and what's going on. And the mystery is that Ra's al Ghul has a book meant to summon... some fucking name that's not going to fit in my head. Meant to summon let's just call him Cthulhu, because that's what it's an allusion to anyway. One of the old ones. Let's say that. Ra's al Ghul has a book that's meant to summon one of the old ones. Talia has to resurrect Ra's al Ghul so he can use it. And the process just begins as we go through all this stuff of this Lovecraftian lore. There's human sacrifice in the form of Mr. Freeze. There's the creation of an ungodly beast out of plant life who ends up, you know, being Poison Ivy, if in anything but direct name. She poisons Harvey Dent, and Harvey's entire body begins to split. Oliver Queen has 4 arrows dipped in the blood of a saint. And so those will be used as a way to defeat these Lovecraftian beasts, because Ollie is killed, but Bruce gets a hold of him. Two-Face becomes kind of a portal to the realm of the old ones, and Bruce has to find a way to save them. And the reason why all this is going on is because the founders of Gotham back in the the 1500s, made a deal with the devil to help bring him into the world in exchange for wealth, power, and immortality. And so the immortality connects to Bruce Wayne actually being the real son of Thomas Wayne, the founder of Gotham. And so it's just this really interesting, intricate, very, very Lovecraftian. It's got this mystery, this horrorness to it that's really cool and really fun. Kirk Langstrom is the body that was left for Bruce Wayne in the house. And at one point, Batman goes and starts reading through Langstrom's diary about what he was up to, what experiments he was doing. And it straight up, it feels so Lovecraft as Langstrom discusses his part of uncovering the mystery. And it even has that very Lovecraftian style of, I'm not long for this world anymore. They are coming for me. I can hear them outside the door now coming for me. And that's one of those things, like, it's so ridiculous, but usually it's so immersive in the horror and the intrigue of the mystery that you don't question it. But, like, to literalize what those scenes, what those moments are like, is to go like this. Ah, come on. Come on, give me a pen. Desk, really? I thought you were my friend, and you're not being very friendly. Alright, there we go. So, like, to literalize it, it's like, I can hear them coming. They're knocking on the door right now. I hope that you are able to find the answers that I was seeking. Like, that's just so ridiculous. Like, that you can hear them on the door, and yet you're sitting there scribbling. You're not, trying to escape or survive kind of thing. It's so Lovecraftian, and it's in so many of his stories that exact sequence happens. But it feels right in this. So I really like that. And it gets really, really horrific, and there's all this body-changing stuff by the time you get to the end of it, wherein Bruce, in order to defeat Ra's al Ghul and everything, has to become a literal Batman, monster of a man, in order to defeat Ra's al Ghul and, by extension, the old one. And that's really cool. I did like that. I'm a sucker for that. Man-batifying things is just cool as shit. I want to see if I can find... Yeah, there's the imagery, and it's really, really grotesque, and again, very Lovecraftian. That really, you can feel the love for the source material and the creepy weirdness of it all, and that's really cool. So anyway, they're able to defeat the horrific monster. I really do love this moment, because there's so much in Lovecraftian lore where, like, the idea of seeing a monster so horrific the idea of just bearing witness to some of the horrors of these beasts, of these like otherworldly things, is so horrific it instantly drives you mad. And like this has a moment that's really cool, where Ra's al Ghul says, "Ha ha ha, fool! This thing is beyond your poor human comprehension. Look down and behold the shape of him who comes. Look down and go mad." And you get the beast with all its mighty tentacles and incomprehensible shape and scale. And Bruce just says, "I've seen it. For 20 years, every time I close my eyes. It holds no special terror for me now." That's a very Batman twist on that Lovecraft trope that I really like. I thought that was really, really clever, because it's part of the whole like way in which Bruce's parents' death worked in this, wherein Thomas and Martha were killed in the street by one of the other founders of Gotham, and that they caused Bruce to run, and he was granted a vision of what was coming, the doom that was coming to Gotham. And so he's had the imagery of the old one burnt into his mind. He sees it every time he's closed his eyes for the last 20 years. And so finally getting to see it and confront it has no special terror for him now. And that's really cool. It really worked for me. It was a really, really neat way to do everything. In any case, Bruce saves the day at the end, and remains, however, a bat monster. Tim Drake, who is one of the young lords of Wayne, is now going to be running Wayne Enterprises, and he explains that the fire that killed Harvey Dent left Bruce terribly scarred, so he will not be in public life because Bruce remains a literal Batman. They don't know that part. They just know that he's scarred, but that's the reason that he's not coming out. So that's, again, just leaving you in that kind of monstrous state, very Shadow out over Innsmouth kind of thing. And so that really works for me. I quite liked it. It was a fun, scary kind of read. This creeping, overarching mystery, this gnawing anxiety, this feeling of wrongness. It's got the conspiracy. It is really a Batman story in an H.P. Lovecraft universe, and I think that was a really cool idea. It was fun to do. Troy Nixey did the art on this, and he does a really, really good job. It's really a bad idea to try to do art of Lovecraft, because Lovecraft is very much meant to be a novel. It's meant to be a story. You're not supposed to try to visualize it, because so many of the lines in Lovecraft will be things like, words fail the ability to describe how horrific this sight was. And so, logically, by extension, artistic representations of it should fail to convey how horrific the monsters being seen are. Troy does a good job of kind of getting around that with the old one that we see in this, because he, I feel very smartly, just lets us see the edges of it, surrounds it in shadow, and lets us see just a hint of the thing, as opposed to the entirety of the beast. And so I think that was just a really, really clever idea, to only show the edges of the monster. And that's usually something that I can't stand, but here I thought it worked really, really well, because it's the whole point of a Lovecraftian beast is you can never properly represent it, because the thing that makes it scary is it's so scary that you can't even properly imagine it. So that was, there's good use of perspective and shading in that regard, and I thought that was really cool. Anyway, I'm really happy with this. I thought it was a really good, solid issue, or solid volume, and I had a lot of fun reading it. So if you're like me and a Batman fan and you have an affinity or enjoyment of H.P. Lovecraft, I definitely recommend checking this out. Alright everyone, thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Trade Talk. Before I let you go, however, I do want to tell you about one thing. This week on Saturday, the 17th of March, we are doing Comic Book Club Volume 2. We'll be discussing Captain America, Man Out of Time. Now, Comic Book Club, for those that don't know, is a new monthly live show where you can join me and others as we discuss this book. All you have to do is have a legal copy of it, whether that's bought on Comixology, bought in person at a store, Amazon, or even rented from your local library. You can join me as we discuss this book. It'll be March 17th at 2 p.m. All you need is a microphone and headphones. Webcam is preferred, though. So I hope to see you there. It should be a good time. That's really all I got. Again, March 17th, 2 p.m. Join. It'll be a fun time. Hang out with us. Talk about a book. Anyway, everyone, thanks very much for watching this episode of Trade Talk. Bye. Oh. How's everyone doing? Oh. How are the live comments going, everybody? I miss good writer Frank. Conversations about Frank Miller. Philip Kelton says, Cthulhu versus Darkseid. Who wins? Ooh, this is a good question. Darkseid is... Come again? Oh. I don't think you can use holy things to beat the Elder Gods, just other Elder Gods. What if Cthulhu had been adopted by the Kents instead of Superman? What if Cthulhu was Superman? That's a really weird story, bro. I don't know where you come from with that one. I don't know what direction to go in with that. What if Cthulhu was Superman? What if water was dry? I don't know. It would be weird. Oh, man. Alright. Well, I think that'll do it for this episode of Comic Reviews. Everyone, thanks very much for watching. Thanks for watching me be unprofessional as I try to get myself Cthulhu. And I hope you enjoyed the episode. Until next time, bye.